Good morning. Welcome to my thought for the day. Today, my mind is full of words from a song we sang in church yesterday. And it is a modern song. And in the middle of the song, it says, "All my life, you have been faithful. All my life, you have been so, so good. With every breath that I'm able, I will sing of the mercies of God." Lovely words. And they remind me, of course, of that amazing couple of verses in the middle of Lamentations. Lamentations is not an easy book to read because it is a lament. It is a lament written by Jeremiah during the fall of Jerusalem and after the fall of Jerusalem. It is full of sadness and woe and difficulty. And right in the middle of it, and it is right in the middle of it because it's 5 chapters. It's divided up into 5 chapters. And in the middle chapter, the third chapter, in the middle of the third chapter, right in the middle of it are the words that we're going to read. But it's right in the middle, and it's so interesting that it's like that. The book doesn't start with these words and it doesn't end with these words. It's right in the middle. And it says to me that God is right in the middle of the difficulties that we face. He hasn't abandoned us. He's with us in the middle. He hasn't left us. Whatever you feel like, whatever your emotions tell you, God is unchanging. God is love. God is goodness. God is faithfulness to us. He is committed to us. And it's us that change. And the enemy, when we're in trouble, when things are difficult, we go up and down like a yo-yo with our emotions, with our feelings, with our thoughts. We're up and down. But God doesn't change. God doesn't change. God doesn't change. And he's right with us. And in the middle of this lament, which tells of the most dreadful things that were happening in Jerusalem, and the siege of Jerusalem was in 3 stages, 3 different sieges over the years, and it just got worse and worse. And Jeremiah lived through it all. And not for nothing is he called the weeping prophet. The tears he shed for the people he lived among, who just did not listen to God's call to them to repent. And they suffered terribly. They suffered terribly, terribly. And Jeremiah lived through it all. And he wrote this lament. And right in the middle of it are these wonderful words. But I'm going to start a few verses before the wonderful words, because it just tells you how terrible things had got for the person writing this. He says in verse 17 of chapter 3 of Lamentations, "My soul is bereft of peace. I have forgotten what happiness is. So I say, gone is my glory and my expectation from the Lord. Remember my affliction and my bitterness, or my wanderings. Remember my affliction and my wanderings, my bitterness, the wormwood and the gall." These are very bitter, bitter things to eat. "My soul continually thinks of it and is bowed down within me. But this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore I will hope in him. The Lord is good to those who wait for him, to the soul that seeks him. It is good that one should wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord." This, even as you read it, there's a peace that comes. But the transition is in the thought life. In the thought life. Verse 20 says, "My soul continually thinks of it and is bowed down within me." And that's true of us all the time. When we dwell on the difficulties, when we focus on the problems, we focus on what we're going through, our soul is bowed down within us. We can't see beyond it. We're completely locked in to thinking about our situation. And that's so true of a lot of us. A lot of the time when things are going wrong, our mind, even when we try to sleep, it goes round and round our head, doesn't it? The thing that we're worried about, the trouble, the problem, the looming thing, whatever it is, something that's coming up, the looming thing, we think about it all the time. The problem, the anxiety, whatever it is, we think, and our mind is filled with it. And along with those thoughts, as those thoughts whirl around our mind, the enemy says to us, he feeds us lies. He says, you see, God doesn't care. You see, God's left you. You see, he's abandoned you. He's busy elsewhere. He's not thinking about you. How long have you been praying about this situation and nothing has changed? It's a brick wall. It's a glass ceiling. God doesn't care. Your prayers are not getting anywhere. Why do you bother? And the more these thoughts go round and round your head, the enemy is robbing you. He's robbing you. What is he robbing you of? Hope. Hope. We live our lives in this world in hope of the future. And the biblical word hope is not like the human word hope that says, I hope everything will be all right. I hope I'll get through this all right. I hope that when this is all over, I'll have settled everything and it'll be over, whatever it is that you're dreading. No, Christian hope is the expectation of something that hasn't yet arrived. It's not a vain hope, it's a certainty. The only difference between the hope of God's blessing tomorrow and God's blessing tomorrow is when we get to tomorrow and we've got the blessing. That's the only difference, that we haven't got it yet, but it's coming. And it's as certain as tomorrow is. Short of the Lord coming again, tomorrow will come. And we can hope for the goodness of God. So the difference is in verse 21, but this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. So here he is, this man who is full, his mind is full of all the disaster around him. He can't think of anything else. But this I call to mind. I bring to the front of my mind this which gives me hope. And what does he think? The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. Instead of thinking about the problem, thinking about the difficulty, thinking about tomorrow, thinking about the mountain that can't be climbed, instead of all those negative thoughts and the thoughts that say God's not listening, he remembers, he brings it to the front of his mind. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. Never ceases. Never, 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 never ceases. Never's a big word. Never ceases. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Now that's a contradiction really, because if you've got something that never ceases and never changes, how can it be new? But it is new. It is new every morning. God's new faithfulness every morning. His faithfulness is new. It's great. His faithfulness is so great, so new, so wonderful, so reliable. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore, I will hope in him. And as you change the thoughts in your mind, your soul is filled with hope. Try it. If you're in the middle of a situation that seems endless and unchangeable, change your thinking and focus on the one that doesn't change rather than the circumstances that feel like they're never going to change. Change your mindset. Change your mindset as you face the problems and focus on God and not on your problems. And then hope will fill you, because the Lord is good to those who wait for him, to the soul that seeks him. Change where you're focusing your gaze, and everything will look different. Have a great day. God bless you.